Well, it's one of those moments where it's like a once in a decade moment where something you've been working on for so long and trying to push into the public discourse by hook or by crook seems to make it there. Talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, who lit a truth bombshell over X, saying that yes, the government can control the weather. This was speaking in October of 2024. The east coast of the United States is being plummeted by hurricanes. Most Americans, in contrast from people in the Middle East or people in Latin America, but most Americans have heard of the idea, at least, that the government can control the weather and is actively involved in manipulating and controlling the weather, at least over the United States and also large parts of the world. Just like most Americans have heard that there are those offering an alternative explanation for the events of September 11th. They might not agree with it, they might never have looked into it, they might not be able to articulate what those arguments are, but it's through media events like this that at least people know that there's a debate, okay? In the chorus of articles and videos that have been made over the last 2 days concerning very brief tweets by Marjorie Taylor Greene, the liberal media has erupted saying, stupid, 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 dumb, 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 dumb. And I was thinking, okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's considered somebody on the right of the political spectrum. She's a MAGA Republican, very outspoken supporter of Donald Trump. She's considered on the right. But for a long time, this idea about protesting the government controlling the weather, this was considered something that was on the left. It was something that you'd hear at the deepest resources of the environmental movement. Dane Wigington, he would publish in websites and news services like The Waking Times and Natural News, and a lot of these online magazines and even physical magazines don't exist anymore because of the censorship. It was something that people would talk about, in hippie land, the government spraying, like my friend Bug Rogers, who had the show Edge of the Herd on K-Mud in Garberville, California. Robert Kennedy Jr. also has been making waves about this unexplained aerial phenomenon, otherwise known as overhead spraying. He did a podcast with Dane Wigington, the title of which was, "Are Chemtrails Real?" Now, also, people ask what could be the motives for the government intervening in obviously such a horrific fashion. And I gotta say, the weather reports, they're political. The reporters who are reporting on these hurricanes, they are political. Listen to how they talk. It's necessary to keep in mind that all this is from humans. All this destruction is caused by humans. And of course, they're talking about the official count of global warming, climate change, carbon emissions, greenhouse gases. We've heard this from Greta Thunberg, and climate change, Al Gore. So they're trying to blame us, and ultimately it's Trump's fault, and it's the American people's fault for voting for Trump because he pulled us out of these climate agreements. They're half right, but their conclusions are wrong. Yeah, it is caused by humans, but not in the way you think. Geoengineering is the biggest elephant in the room, and we applaud Marjorie Taylor Greene for bringing it into the living rooms of the American people. But these naysayers and doomsday predictions from those who they've made a kind of church, kind of Marxism out of the official account of global warming and climate change, and all the implications and political policies that spring from it. But I'm saying, how can we even have a conversation about what's causing global warming, cow farts, not eating bugs, if the U.S. military has been heavily involved in weather manipulation for many years, but in earnest since the end of the 90s. I looked up that document, that 1996 document by the U.S. military. It was called Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather by 2025. I looked it up on Chatbot, on ChatGPT, and it says this is a work of fiction by the U.S. military. Well, the U.S. military has never been in the business of writing fiction. If they were, they would be winning the Nobel Prize in literature, because with all the money and all the propaganda they have, they could write the best works of fiction they would want to. Since when do we refer to policy papers, policy proposals, and government white papers? Since when do we refer to them as works of fiction? It was almost like ChatGPT just had to put in that word, fiction. Everything is talked about in that white paper has come to pass. Just like the Project for the New American Century. Oops, coincidence. But there is proof. Everybody should watch the documentary, The Dimming, put out by geoengineeringwatch.org. People should listen to the podcast that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did with Dane Wigington, and of course those resources and at least the trailers for some of these documentaries are here on my BitChute channel. Frankenskies by Matt Landman. So we have an election in a few weeks. And if Donald Trump loses, it's going to be his own fault, because he hasn't pushed down on this real diabolical agenda of the technocratic elite, the false flag terrorism, the weather manipulation, that would shake faith in the very system itself. And without doing that, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are going into battle with one arm tied behind their backs. Now, the Republicans should double down on government creating this hurricane narrative and use it as an opportunity to really bring attention to something that's so important, and just watch the media just go ballistic over it. Even Colonel McGregor, he's been on Tucker Carlson. Colonel McGregor, he's been on Tucker Carlson talking about geopolitics, the Ukraine war. Now he's doing a podcast with Dane Wigington. So it's not like those guys don't know it. And of course, Dane Wigington being the main name that people think of when they think of this. He was a neighbor of mine over in Northern California. He was in Redding, California. I was in Humboldt County. Okay, not exactly neighbors, but close enough. I have had contact with him over the years. And of course, he has Geoengineering Watch. But there's also those videos I've done with Alana Freeland, my interviews with her, Under a Night Sky. So Marjorie Taylor Greene and others need to link to this.